Hello and welcome to the third edition of the Andalucia Bike Race, a 6-day mountain bike stage race contested in pairs that brings together some of the best mountain bikers in the world for a battle across the beautiful south of Spain. Taking place from February 24th through to the 1st of March, this competition sees the entrants traversing the provinces of Córdoba and Jaén in pursuit of glory in this grueling race on two wheels. It's one of the highlights of the year for mountain bikers, all set against a breathtaking backdrop. The first edition of the Andalucia Bike Race was held back in 2011, and since then it has only grown in popularity. The race is a real challenge for the mountain bikers. They all know the route, which is spectacular, and the backdrop has an authentic beauty. As for the route itself, there are some trails and mountains that nobody really associates with Andalucia, and that makes it an even more attractive race. One of the most notable things about Andalucia is the great contrast. You go from the Sierra Morena of Córdoba, the more vertical terrain of Córdoba, then reach the mountainous sections, then onto Jaén, which has the highest mountain range. There we can find variety in the terrain that includes mountain trails and even some snow.
Mares de olivos hasta senderos de montaña donde incluso podemos encontrar nieve.
I think that it is a route made by mountain bikers for mountain bikers, without a doubt. That's what all the participants love. Let's run down some of the favourites for victory, some who are going for the win in the year's competition.
Venimos contentos, motivados.
We are happy and motivated and a little cautious because we have seen the route, and this year it will be very demanding. The fact that the last day is against the clock makes it even more demanding because you never know. You're racing against time and you don't know if your direct rival is going fast or slow.
Our expectations are getting used to our new bike and getting used to the race rhythm, and our goal to be on the podium, but for sure it's not that easy. The competition is strong.
I'm anxious to try and win a stage, and we want a good result overall, although the aim is more overall. It gets better and better. The course has become more of a trail and it's more technically complete.
It's nice to come here in Andalusia in the winter this time of year. I think for European riders it's nice to escape the colder weather and to come here to Andalusia and have some sunshine. And to escape the bad weather.
I'm getting used to this. I'll maybe have learnt from some mistakes that I made last year, and I'll try to pass lessons on to my teammate who debuts this year. On to the action from the Andalucia Bike Race, each of the 6 stages in the 2013 competition. This is the first stage, 72.3 kilometers in length, with a total climb of 1,550 metres, starting in Córdoba. The first challenge for the mountain bikers, and a chance to see who is in top form and who is the most motivated early on. The adrenaline pumping at the start of the competition, but the riders would have to pace themselves with further tough stages ahead. First stage packed with spectators and a light climb through the woodland area of Córdoba to start proceedings. A few puddles and muddy sections present, thanks to some rain in the days prior to the race, adding to the trickiness of the conditions. The participants would even have to manoeuvre a small river of water right off the start. Beautiful surroundings indeed, but serious business to kick off the contest. The race is a very demanding one, and the riders would encounter early rocky and muddy sections. Some of the best in the world were in action at this event, including José Antonio Hermida and Rudy van Hoots, Thomas Lichter and André Sink, 2 under-23 world champions, Alvan Lacata and Robert Menen, also ones to watch, plus the Topic Ergon team, the marathon world champions in 2010. This footage of the second Multivan Merida team of Thomas Lichter and André Sink on this downhill section that poses a tricky challenge for the riders. Plenty of rocks and always the risk of a puncture or bike breakage, so they would have to be careful when taking on the stones. The stage would be won by the second Multivan Merida team of Licha and Sink.
I had a good feeling for the start, and we rode full gas, and the course was nice, the weather was nice, and we had also a nice group with Rudy and Jose. We were four together.
The first stage win goes to Multivan Merida's second team, Licha and Sink, completing stage 1 in a time of 2 hours and 36 minutes, 21 seconds ahead of Ermida and Van Hoots. In the women's category, Sally Bigham and Milena Landvig took the win on stage 1.
Yeah, of course, always happy with a stage win, so it was a good day for us, and it was a little bit hectic in the start. With many riders and lots of chaos, but once the race started, then it was nice, and it was some nice trails, and I enjoyed the mud and the water. It was fun.
A win for Bigham and Landvig. They topped the standings after the first stage with a time of 3 hours, 13 minutes and 16 seconds. The second stage also took place in the Cordoba Sierras, again starting off on the streets of the region's capital. Stage 2 features a slightly shorter route of 70.7 kilometers with a total climb of 1,895 meters. It's a more technical stage than the first, as things began to get more difficult for the competitors. Starting out with a long flat section. Once the trail hits the open, it has a speedy run towards the mountainous terrain. The Wild Wolf team led the way on the early part of the stage, using some local knowledge to gain a small advantage, and there were still plenty of puddles to face thanks to that rain earlier in the week. A short climb preceding a longer, tougher climb, which would provide the biggest test to date for the competitors. As in the opening stage, the fans had also made an effort and got into a prime position to cheer the competitors on as they pushed their way up the hill. In the women's category, the dominance of Sally Bigham and Milena Landvig was apparent, but there were teams behind them keen to fight for the win. And there were a host of nationalities involved in the race in both the men's and women's competition, up to 24 different nationalities, including a strong Scandinavian presence from Denmark and Norway. This the trickiest stage to date, some riders choosing to dismount in order to push their bikes up the rocky climb. Multivan Merida's first team of Jose Antonio Ermida and Roger Van Houts won the second stage in the men's category. It would all be decided on the Reventon, the final part of stage 2. So the win in that stage going to Multivan Merida's first team of Ermida and Van Houts.
El Reventón ha sido decisivo, ya que conociéndolo el Reventón desde hace ya.
The Reventón was decisive, and we knew from previous editions that you have to show your cards early. I had a small crash on one of the turns, but was able to continue in what was a very tight stage.
Hemos podido salvar la papeleta y de aquí que hayamos visto una llegada tan ajustada, dado que Alban también iba muy fuerte.
Ermida and Van Houts win the second stage with a time of 3 hours, 14 minutes and 44 seconds, just 0.22 back Licha and Sink. Sally Bigham and Milena Landvig went 2 for 2 by winning the second stage in the women's category.
Today was much better than yesterday. Yesterday I had not so good feeling, but today we worked good together, and so It was a good race today.
Bigham and Landvig taking a second stage win ahead of Marga Fujana and Sandra Santañez of Massey BC Sprint. Stage 3 was set to start in Priego de Córdoba, approaching the halfway stage of the Andalucía bike race. Less distance still for stage 3 at 66.7 kilometers, with the climb increased to 2,090 meters. El Navazuelo and the Bailón downhill, the emblems of the third stage, and the tiredness beginning to set in for the competitors, particularly after the climb on day 2. The climb on day 3 came at one of the most emblematic points of the competition, and there was also a drop in temperatures during one of the most physically demanding stages of the race. The pebbles and stones made for technical riding in the climb only increased the difficulty of the obstacles. The descent on Bailón also required plenty of care, and still there were puddles present around the course. The temperatures may have gradually dropped, but the riders at least had clear skies and sunshine to warm them up. The riders arrived at the finish line in Priego de Córdoba, where the fans were once again awaiting the tired competitors. Looking overhead, the difficulty of the terrain is clear. Plenty of switchbacks and an extremely tough descent. Heading up to Priego de Córdoba, the top teams maintained the status quo on this grueling stage, separating from the pack early on. Those behind them tightly packed, but the stage win went to Topic Ergon, led by Alban Lakata. Getting past the halfway point of the Andalucía bike race, and some tired legs amongst the competitors. Armida also injured on his hand from that fall at the end of stage 2. A mix of terrains for the third stage, eventually won by Topic Ergon. Second place going to Wild Wolf Trek, but nobody able to stop Lakata and his teammate.
The third stage, was the pretty toughest one. We had a really good ride today. I was a little bit surprised that Merida couldn't keep up with us.
Out in front, Lakata and Menen ahead of the Wild Wolf Trek team of Trujillo and Perez. In the general standings, Topic Ergon moved to the top, ahead of Team Centurion, and in the women's class, Bigham and Landvig took another win, ahead of Fujana and Santañez. The difference after day 3 stands at almost an hour in the women's competition, and in the mixed, the team of Thomas Buoni and Annika Langvad also had a solid performance on day 3.
It's nice, but we come here and think, oh, now it's just summer, but it's not. This morning it was around 0 degrees when we started, and on one of the tops, on one of the hills, we actually rode through ice. It's the first time this winter that I get so much sun, so I really enjoy it.
Stage 4 starts in Bedmar, and the mountain climb keeps on increasing. The Andalucía bike race past the halfway stage. This next stage, 68.7 kilometers in length, and features a 3,055 meter total climb. The fourth stage taking place in Jaén, and it would be a more physical challenge. A light wind cooled things off as the temperatures continued to dip, sending them to the left of the track in order to take some refuge from the windy conditions. The riders wrapped up warm as the cold began to bite. There were even areas of the course that saw ice and snow to illustrate the adverse conditions for a mountain biker. Mixed in with mud and providing the threat of a slip every way. Stage 4, the trickiest to date in the Andalusia bike race. 80% of this stage was contested above 1,000 meters, in the highest stage to date for the competitors. Thomas Licher and André Sink were able to move back ahead after a strong stage. The under-23 world champions showing strength and technique in their recovery. Snowy conditions on stage 4. A really fantastic backdrop in the south of Spain. In the women's category, Fuyana and Santañez suffered a breakage to the rear derailleur on the 10th kilometre of the stage and had to retire. And it was the final peak of the 4th stage, but was one that almost caught the riders by surprise. One of the most demanding sections of the entire race. Licher and Sink won another stage, taking advantage of their full suspension bikes. Another win for the second Multivan Merida team. Tremendously technical, the 4th stage. And the riders all getting very tired indeed. Licher and Sink crossing the finish line first to take the victory.
In the last uphill, we tried, we fight, and I was suffering the last uphill like don't know what, just stars in my head, and in the end it was a perfect day for us.
Multivan Merida's second team winning the 4th stage by just 44 seconds over Team Centurion, consisting of Kass and Kaufmann from Germany. Locata and Menon led the overall standings 8 minutes ahead of Team Centurion, and Multivan Merida's second team a further 11 minutes behind. Bigam and Landvig continued to lead the way in the women's class, winning stage 4 by 21 minutes over United Bakeries. And of course that put Topik Ergon on top of the standings with an advantage of 2 hours and 4 minutes. What would have been the 5th stage of the Andalusia bike race was called off due to the heavy snowfall over the route. The organisers deciding that it was far too dangerous for the competitors and reducing the race to just 5 stages. That 5th stage was scheduled to take place in Jaén on a 74.4 kilometre course with a total climb of 2,660 minutes, but that was not to be. Rainfall and snow making conditions impossible for the mountain bikers.
Meteorológicas de hoy son muy malas y hemos decidido anular la etapa de hoy.
The decision being announced and the riders pleased with the official announcement. And that would also mean a day off for the mountain bikers who would start stage 6 relatively fresh.
Las decisiones que hemos tomado era, por supuesto, la primera era la seguridad de los...
We took the decision for the safety of the participants, as a 3-hour duration for the winner would mean 6 hours for the competitors further back. The organisers, authorities and police declared a black alert as it wasn't safe to hold the stage.
Las autoridades como la Guardia Civil y Policía habían anunciado la alerta negra y no era sensato tomar la salida.
The riders undertook active rest with their bikes on the rollers in preparation for the final stage. There were also massages on their weary legs, still sore after 4 days of intense mountain biking. The finish line in sight though for both the male and female competitors. And there would be a change to the final stage as well. It was originally going to be a time trial, changed in fact to a marathon stage due to the unrideability of some of the route. Riding against the clock, originally the order of the day, but in the end, that route modified to a little over a 50-kilometer marathon. In fact, the duration of the final stage, 53 kilometers with a comparatively small climb of 1,500 meters. And that was the route through Jaén that the Andalucía bike race would take on its final stage. This, another marathon stage, and the various different bikes would be put to the test. The full suspension had favoured the Multivan Merida team earlier in the race, and almost all riders were using 29-inch wheels for this final clash. There were fantastic backdrops in Jaén with the snow thawed out, and the Cortafuegos hill was a particular delight. All the varied terrain of Andalucía was on display, and the varied conditions had provided a fantastic few days of riding. A very unpredictable competition indeed. The only constant, the beauty of Andalucía, the real star of the competition. In the final stage, Carlos Coloma and Sergio Mantecón, following on from a formidable performance in the London Olympic Games, had another excellent showing, and they won the final stage to go out with a bang for Wild Wolf Trek. Coloma and Mantecón, experts at this sort of terrain, and they used that to their advantage. Two Spaniards with home advantage in the Andalucía bike race. The muddy conditions, no problem for them as they burst ahead early on and never looked back, even alongside this snowy section. The snow and ice as well, courtesy of the rain. Extremely technical conditions, mastered by some of the best mountain bikers on the planet. The win going to Carlos Coloma and Sergio Mantecón in the final stage of the Andalucía bike race.
Pues hemos salido muy concienciados, hemos seguido un protocolo.
We went out with our World Cup protocol with a warm-up and then tried to break free. I attacked Carlos first, then we got away to ride the whole stage by ourselves.
Solos a relevos toda la etapa.
Mantecón and Coloma won the stage by almost 3 minutes over Cass and Kaufmann, with Leacher and Sink the same distance behind them. Licata and Menon took the win though in the overall standings with a large winning margin of over 8.5 minutes. Cass and Kaufmann took second.
And it's really a great feeling to win the first race in this season, and I know now that I'm really good prepared, and I'm looking forward to other races. But this race was really a great event. I'm looking forward already to next year.
Bigham and Landvig completed a perfect race with a final win, claiming victory in stage 6 by 7.5 minutes. And they would of course win the overall standings ahead of Rossesen and Lovset. A margin of over 20 hours, their final victory margin.
It's been one thing after another, so it's been quite a battle this week to deal with all of the different problems that we've had. So now it's a relief to finish and to finish in the sunshine as well.
And in the mixed class, the mixed team of Thomas Borny and Annika Langvad won their class, taking the final victory in the Andalusia bike race. And that concludes the competition for 2013. The 2014 Andalusia bike race promises just as much competition. Join us for that next year.